Alrighty, we'll go ahead and get rolling. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Todd Trevisano, Customer Success Manager here with AVAIL, and we've got about 30 minutes or so scheduled to get you caught up to speed on key cards, which I'm really excited to talk about and share just some of the things that I've seen and learned from our customers since we rolled it out. I don't know, I guess it was about a year ago that we got that rolled out. So um, what I'll be doing today is just providing an overview just of how they work, why we introduce them, and how to use them well. I like to keep this pretty informal. So if you've got any questions, please drop those into the chat or Q&A, and I'll do my best to answer those as we go along. But hopefully we've got something fun here for you to see or learn today. So with that said, we'll jump right in. First things first, what are key cards? That's what we're going to cover, and then why we use them, how we see those key cards being used frequently. I'll give you some examples that I've got the okay to share. Maybe some of them will look familiar to some on the call here. And then I like to give some general rules. As Randall likes to say, rules are meant to be broken. So, these tips, might be a better term for tips for how you make your key cards and effective ways to use them, I'll share with you. And last but not least, I'll just actually, towards the end here, just give you a tutorial, a live demo of how to enable those key cards, and then how to maybe, if you have any questions around like tag management. I'm not going to be focused strictly on how to use tags, but since tags are one-to-one related to key cards, it is important to have a general understanding of your tag management will affect your key card management. So with that said, what are key cards? If you're not familiar whatsoever with what key cards are, it's essentially just your tags presented in a different way, in a more guided and graphical browsing experience, based on those tags associated to your content. So if I zoom in on these a little bit, on the left here, we've got, a typical AVAIL channel. Content's been indexed into it. In this case, there's already been some structuring and working with the tags. But they're all just down here at the bottom in your tags and filters panel displayed there. You come into your channel, and you can also, if it's a little hard to see, I'm sure in this image, but there's over 2,700 items in this channel, so there's going to be quite a high volume of tags here. But what we've done with key cards is you can take those tags, and based on the key of the tags, you can have those presented as cards, kind of a graphical interface of cards that you can navigate through more easily. So they're based on those tags' key value pairs. So again, tags consist of a key and a value. So on the left here, what we're seeing is the key of Revit category. And then for each value, you have a card that gets created. So annotation symbols, boundary conditions, cable tray fittings, etc. We look over here where key cards have been created out of those tags, and that's what you see here. You see a card for each one of those values. So because these are dynamic, if I added a new item to my channel that had a different Revit category than is already here, it would automatically create a new key card for that in my channel if I have those enabled. So it's like I said, it's dynamic. It's all data driven instead of like a folder system would be. And what this helps us do is avoid the common pitfalls of a folder system or file system, which is this hierarchical concept that you have to know exactly how to drill down to get to what you want. Because this is data driven, it's all based on tags. So you could theoretically find your way to the same piece of content down two completely different paths. And with the general focus of how AVAIL works, you can also have these items in multiple channels, and they could be tagged, and organized and presented in a different way depending on the channel. So it's very powerful. It takes a little bit to wrap your brain around, but once you do, you see how the flexible system really makes it helpful for being able to navigate and find what you need. I'm already getting into the why a little bit, but anyway, so that's what they are. It's a tag-based graphical interface for finding your content. Excuse me. So why do we use them, or why might you want to consider using them in your channels? One is just, again, Avail's all based on visuals and kind of how humans tend to, find content, and we're very visual people. We see things, and it helps us find them when it stands out to us. So this is one of the submissions we had to our key card contest last year from SEMA. And it's what I like to say in this case is like, find landscape. It takes just a split second to look at that and say, oh, yep, okay, I'm looking for landscape things, or I'm looking for our mechanical. It really pops, it really stands out and is easy. And not only that, because of our visual nature, it's more pleasing to us when we have something like this to look at, rather than just a standard, tag, or maybe, list of words. This is something that people will, I think, be more attracted to and want to use, right? So our visual nature is a big reason why key cards can be helpful. The other, I think, really key factor here is, by nature, when you have lots of content in a channel, you're going to end up with lots of tags, and subsequently the potential for lots of, what we refer to as noise. Which is just, when you have a high volume of tags, it becomes very difficult to parse through and find what it is you need to find. So if I said find landscape in that series of tags, it might be more challenging, right? And this is on a structured channel, like where we actually, have our key values all organized the way that we want. But if it's unfiltered, it just looks like a lot at first. And what we've found and heard back from customers is that when a new user jumps into this, with a little training, this could still be navigated really easily. But for a new user, sometimes they'll look at that and be like, whoa, too much, I don't even know where to begin. They're just, going into a channel and seeing, why am I just seeing, random content right at the top? And then they bring this up and they see a ton of wall of tags, and they can get overwhelmed, right? So we took that in stride, and we're thinking about that. And that's partly where key cards came from. It's like, hey, we can help that overwhelming feeling by just giving people a couple choices right off the bat with a key card can drastically reduce how this looks. And we'll jump into the app and see that in action. So those are really some of the key reasons why, if you're not using them, or, you've been using them differently, this is just, a way to think about it. And then lastly, I like to point out that it really helps guide people to content. And by that, obviously they're all trying to find content, but by guide, I mean, it's particularly helpful to have key cards when someone is unsure of exactly what it is that they want. Sometimes if you go into AVAIL and I'm looking exactly for this specific type of table, you type that into the search bar and you're likely to get right on top of that with a text search. But more often than not, and you can see this from the data of how people search, they don't go in and type in as often, I need specifically this piece of content. They go, oh, okay, I'm looking for a table. They just type in table search. I'll look for a chair, something broad. And then they want to narrow down. So key cards help with that kind of guidance and narrowing down towards what it is that you need. So I'm looking for electrical and lighting. Okay, I know that. Oh, okay, I'm looking for some sort of, wire-away component. Okay, now I'm down to just a subset of those things, and now I can figure out exactly what it is that I need and what I'm looking for. So having that guided path makes it that much more comfortable and easy for people to get in and start finding what it is. And with very little training as well at that point, you don't have to teach them a file system and here's how we do it here. They can just jump in, start to navigate, click around, and pretty quickly start to find their way towards the content that you want them to use ultimately, right? So, several good reasons to jump in and start using them if you haven't. So how are key cards being used? Well, we're seeing lots of different ways, and it's really fun to see. And I'll bring over some examples from our last key card contest. But I wanted to make a little table that gives you kind of an overall kind of idea of how we generally see these being broken up. You know, well, and I'll say this is everybody uses them because they are customizable a little bit differently, but we do find themes right here. So in general, we've got our on our left here at the table, you've got your channels, right? So you got, and I didn't name them on purpose in this case, just to keep it kind of generic, but channel 1, channel 2, channel 3, all the way down to, 30 channels, something, however there might be. And then I color-coded a few of these here just to insinuate our concept of channel groups. So you have the ability now to group channels together. And that's really changed and kind of opened up the way that our customers are starting to think about and use their channel cards their channels, and then subsequently their key cards. They can save users clicks by introducing a channel group. So I'll show you that too briefly, even though it's not directly key cards, but it's all tied together, right? So channels and groups of channels. And then when you get into the key cards into your channel, so you enter into your channel, boom, now I'm going to start adding in this navigation interface with key cards. Generally, I would say we see 1 to 3 levels of key cards. And it's something like this typically. Your level 1 key card, typically the grid format, it's that big card that takes up the whole screen. You navigate into there, then there may optionally be a secondary layer of that. So you can think of like, this is like a category, this is like a subcategory of some kind. Again, also frequently we see that as a grid, but not always. Sometimes it's just straight to banner mode right then. And then if there's a third level, usually that last level is going to be having those key cards presented as a banner mode. And again, if you're not sure what grid and banner are yet, I'll show you directly in the app here soon. But that's really a common thing. And like I said, maybe it's just one level and it's just banner, or one level and it's grid. What we've seen people try and then quickly try to reel back in and say, okay, that's not what we want to do, is go much further than 3 layers. After that, it really starts to feel more cumbersome and feel like you're just recreating your file structure, which is kind of defeating the purpose, right? That's not what people are looking for in AVAIL, because the file system would just, is more lightweight and it could be faster than a graphical interface with 10 layers of cards, right? So, that's that 2 or 3 card layer max is usually the sweet spot. And then what kind of common keys are we seeing being used? Well, this is just a couple examples. As a top layer, like maybe Studio or Office. This is our Atlanta office. This is our Dallas office. This is New York, etc. And then layer that down by Revit category, and then maybe some subcategory like casework, and then here be as banner mode, tall cabinets, base cabinets, etc. Common example. Another one is discipline, frequently used either as a top level key card or as a channel group, and then breaking those further down by like project type. So specific types of projects you might have, and then after that, Revit version. Revit version is a frequent use of one, either as the lowest or the first. It kind of depends. Like you select that at the very top and just, okay, I'm looking for Revit 2023, or at the very end, you get down and you see 3 of the same type and you say, okay, I just need the 2023 version. So that's another really common way that we see customers using that. And then I left this one blank on purpose, just to say there's lots of other different ways and lots of other keys that we see getting used. And I'll highlight in a moment some of the other keys that we see really frequently. So, and I said that, and I'm going to do that right now. Really common keys we see. And I bring this up to say, you could mix and match these any way that you decide is the best for your organization, right? So key cards, it is a linear experience, but it's flexible in terms of you can rearrange that any way you want in your channel to provide the best experience possible. So it could be, like I said, Revit version is at the top, or it could be that it's at the end. Totally up to you. So common keys that we see used: unit, so like, is it metric or imperial content, the project type, Revit version, Revit category, element type. This is something that we tag with automatically when you harvest, like it's drafting view, it's a schedule, it's a sheet, it's a legend. So it's really common to use element type in some way. Material type. And again, sometimes the wording changes material, but is this concrete? Is this steel? Is this wood? Customer. So a lot of times we have, there will be customer specific content. And so we actually see this a fair amount, where that's another common key that's used, just to be like, yep, I'm looking for this specific customer's content. Or that we use it for this customer and that customer. And so whether I filter down by this customer when I'm working on their projects, another one of their projects, or this customer's, I can find my way to the same piece of content. Project stage, another one that's been we've seen, and is, I think, pretty cool use of it. So like, hey, this is in our what we call our presentation phase. Here's our delivery phase content. Here's our QC stage of content. Division, that's another really common one that we see frequently. And yeah, that's all I had right now. So those, I would say, did I get 10 in there? I was trying to look for the top 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I got 9, so I was one short. But those are the top 9 that we see. If you have others that you really like, or that you think are worth sharing, please feel free to put those in the chat or Q&A. I'd be happy to share those with everyone as well. So again, take those, mix and match them. You can experiment with using those, but those tend to be what we see really frequently. Additionally, I wanted to give a couple tips, and I think I'm going to go ahead and switch over now to the application itself. Before I start getting into tips too much, it's going to be nice to actually see and walk through setting up your tags. Your tags, but your key cards. So if you have any questions on this, let me know, but I'll try to work these tips in as we go and then show them towards the end. So I'll go ahead and just minimize this, move it over, and bring up AVAIL. Whoop. Okay, so we're in AVAIL. And what we're going to do first is, I'm going to assume that you've created a channel, you're familiar with some of the basic premises of AVAIL, and I'm just going to go to a channel that I have already created here, called user-friendly, channel navigation. And I'll point out again, if you're not familiar with the channel group concept, you'll see channel groups listed here across the top, and you're able to filter down by those channel groups. So again, this is a good way that customers have started to introduce, like, oh, I want to do this by, program, like this is Revit, or this is Rhino, or maybe by discipline. This is our structural, this is our architectural, etc. So channel groups really helpful. Very easy to add a channel group. If you're an editor, a publisher, you can just right click on a channel and say manage channel groups, add to group. And then you've got a list of existing ones, or I could come in and say, I want to add a new channel group, and I'm just going to call this one key cards. I can give it a unique color, description, and then just create that group. And now I'll see that group at the top as well. And I can filter down by that group of channels. So if I had more assigned to it, like I do here, it just filters me down, and I'm able to search directly within that. So channel groups definitely can be helpful for how you decide ultimately to organize your content. I'll jump in here though and come into my channel. I don't have a ton of content in here, but should hopefully still be able to communicate to you, how you can leverage these. So down here at the bottom, this is what people typically see without key cards enabled. Here's all my content. Here are my tags. Up in the top right, you've got your tags and filters panel. So if you select that, you can actually control what tags are displayed. And so I've got, actually several other keys here that I've just hidden. I've just selected to only show the top 5. And anything below the top 5 are grayed out, and then they won't be displayed for my end users. So if I wanted to use Revit category, then I'm going to actually bring that up here into the top 5. Or I could actually, I'm going to set it up to 6 so that I include project type in here as well. But I've got that now in the top 6, and it'll display for my end users in the order that I've put it here. So I come back out, refresh, and you can see now I got Revit category project type here as well. I got 6 layers. All those tags that are hidden are still searchable by text, but you've kind of initially just cleaned up your interface and hidden those unnecessary tags, which is really nice. And in general, it's good to structure these in the way that users are most likely to filter out and let's say whittle down to the content that they need. So if element type is the most helpful, I'm going to put that at the top. So that way, when I click on a tag, it funnels out everything else. Excuse me, filters out everything else out below that. Boom! I'm just right down to that. The other really important thing to note about this is that currently the way it's designed is that you can only use keys which are actually visibly being displayed as your key cards. So if a key is hidden, then you're not going to see that in the list of available key card keys. So that's another thing that has sometimes caught people off guard, like, hey, where's the key that I wanted to use? If it's hidden, then you won't be able to use that as a key card. So just note that. Great. So let's say, though, that I wanted to add key cards now. Over here on the right side, we call these lenses. You've got the key card editor. You should see that if you are an editor on the channel. I'll pop this open. And it's going to share those 6 keys that I had displayed. It's going to show those here so that I can pick what I'd like to display and then add that as a key card. So I've got a few different here. I'll go ahead and just select Revit version to start with and say continue. And you'll see it added it over here to my flow. So this is where you're adding your layers of key cards. So right now I've just got 1 layer. If I wanted to add an additional layer, I'll just select add key, and I could add in, let's say, Revit category. Hit continue. Now I've got 2 steps in my process here. From here, I can customize and style these the way that I want to. So I might decide that, first I want to, move Revit category up to the first level. So I just dragged and dropped that. Now Revit category will be the first thing that's displayed. And then next would be Revit version. I click on Revit category, and it's going to pop open and show me my key cards. Now, these are already, Revit category is already showing key cards, excuse me, because they've already been set in a different channel. So we're already using Revit category in this account. We've customized the look of Revit category, so that is how it's going to appear in this channel as well. And that was a decision because it creates a consistent environment wherever users are going, and also you don't have to redo work. So now Revit category is here, and I don't have to go re-add all those images another time. But if I added, let's say, a third one, I'll do project type. I don't think that has anything. This is what you would see if you haven't set anything. It's just a blank key card, and it's going to default to the grid format. So you've got grid mode, which is where it's going to take up the whole screen, or you've got banner mode, where it's just going to display along the top as like a little ribbon. So if I selected one of these key cards, you'll see the additional options pop over here where you can customize them. I can change the color. I can change the alignment of the text to however I like. I could also multi-select this, hold down Shift or Control and select multiple, and now I can customize them together. So get that all squared away. And let's see here. That one didn't. Let's get that. Oh, that one's. Oh, we might have a little. Oh, I'm hitting the wrong one. I'm like, It's not going over. I'm hitting the right. I meant to hit center. So yeah, you can customize those together by holding Shift and selecting multi-selecting. Or you may decide that you want to, hide the text altogether. So I'll do that. And then I could actually just give it a custom image. So I'm going to say choose image. I'll come over here. I'm going to find something from my desktop. I've got a whole mess of things on there. I thought I had an image ready to go. There we go. Select open. And it'll add that image. There's a classic XP background. It'll add that image to my key card. Now I should have grabbed a 16:9. That's not actually a 16:9 ratio, but it's a 16:9 ratio. So it's the same as your typical PowerPoint. So another tip is to just create like a PowerPoint template that you can easily update, export as an image, and add that so that you can really quickly create new key cards if you're wanting to use a custom image for those. So, I could just come in here, type in, change the words, add a different image, export, ready to go. So really helpful, simple way. But yeah, 16:9, same as your typical PowerPoint slide. So customize them to your heart's content. And I'm going to go ahead and actually close project type and then just come back over here and I'll show you Revit version. So Revit version right now we've got set to banner mode, and something new that was added a couple months ago is the ability to shape how those look. So you can make them uniform width, or you can make them stretch to fit the text, which was a big ask we had. So it does that now, I think by default. And then you can also change the edges. So you could round the edges or square the edges. From my experience, round tends to be the favored one unless you're using an image on these. And then squaring them is usually preferred, just because the round can kind of cut the image in a weird way sometimes. But again, up to you and what you're doing. What I will say is if you use an image on banner mode, realize that image is going to be quite small. So only use an image if you think it's going to be a really distinguishable, helpful image. So like a logo or something like that can work well. But if it's a detailed one and has words on it, I'll give you an example right here. If I make this banner mode, that quickly becomes difficult to see and not ideal. So if you're going to use an image, make sure it's a simple one on the banner mode. So we'll customize those and then I'll hit publish. So get this the way you like them, hit the publish button and then say okay. And now I'll back out, and you've got to do a hard refresh of the channel here. So I'll hit the refresh button. And now when I come into my channel, rather than immediately seeing my content and all the tags, I'm getting presented with the first key card step in my flow here. In this case, Revit category. I've only got a little bit of stuff in here. I'm going to select furniture, narrows me down. So you see down here, it behaves exactly the same as if I had selected that tag in my tags and filters editor. That is just now whittled down to just furniture. And then along the top here, I've got my Revit versions. So I can just quickly select between which version I'm looking for, and it'll filter out by that content. Again, same as if I was selecting my tags down here. We've just elevated it to a more prominent position for easy filtering. And that's the gist of it, really. So again, it's data driven. So if I added a new item to this channel, actually we can just go ahead and I don't know if I've got anything handy actually before I say that. But if I added some new Revit category to this channel, it would just automatically add that key card. I come in and style it and be ready to go. So I'm going to take you over to a channel where there's a little bit more content and you can get a better idea. But if I come to like our Revit library 2024 and come into here, it has key cards enabled. Again, this is by Revit category first. These can be resized, so you can search through really easily. But I've just narrowed it down to an easier selection for us to be able to find. Then I could say, okay, I'm looking for casework, narrow down by that. And now at the top, I've got like a subcategory here of base cabinet, corner, countertop, tall cabinet. But again, I still have my tags and filters panel at the bottom. So let's say that I, narrow down by, a base cabinet. You'll see my tags in the bottom also filter out. And so I can still use those if there's any remaining ones. So that's the key there. If you've got 2 or 3 steps, just remember and I think train folks to then after that leverage your tags and filters panel. Lean on that from that point on rather than adding more layers of tags. And another really good consideration is if you can't get people down to what they need within that 2 or 3 clicks, those 2 or 3 layers, that's usually a good indication you might want to separate some of that out into its own channel. That's a strong indicator. Like, okay, if I can't get it in 2 or 3 key cards down to a reasonable amount that people want to work with from here, okay, maybe I need to take a lump of this and break that off into its own channel, figure out what makes sense to separate out. So just a way that is helpful to think about it. Let me do the same thing real quick. I'll clear my search and do this without key cards, because I think another really helpful thing, excuse me, sorry. Got my Marco Rubio thing going on there. Just the throat's been hurting lately. I lost my train of thought too. I'll hide my key cards and just show you what that looks like without that. Oh, that's what I was going to say, is a little training tip that I always like to mention to people, especially to my consumers sometimes, is that sometimes the key cards makes life easier. Sometimes it slows me down. And so just knowing that I can toggle those on or off is really helpful. So just pointing out to your users that come up here to the 3 dots and you can show or hide those key cards if you need to. And then it becomes user preference, and I find if I'm navigating and searching, I like to have them. If I'm publishing and I'm editing my channel, I like to hide them. It's a little easier for me to just see everything and make sure I'm not missing anything. So knowing that's there is a nice training tip. But again, this is that channel with lots of tags. And so just to show you how that filters out, if I come in and do the same thing, select casework, all those other tags get removed away and it gets simplified here. So, it's behaving the same. It's just helping reduce a lot of that noise and providing some of that folder familiarity without the downside of folders. I haven't dug into tagging too much. I did talk some about the tags and filters editor, but what I would say in terms of ways to help drive these things, you think again, you've got kind of front loading it, like with your indexing and you're automating your indexing. You've got tagging directly within the interface, like either by, directly, adding tags to content or the tags and filters editor. I don't have it in this channel, actually. I'm not an editor in this channel. Let me go to one where I am. Or using Tag.io. So those are kind of the 3 big ways I think about it, is I can use, my folder structure and the Revit tag generator to help pump tags into my content upon indexing. And then I can tweak here or with the tags and filters panel, or if I really need to, go to my channel tools, go to Tag.io, and I can download a spreadsheet of these and then add, remove tags in bulk right there. So those are really helpful ways for those are your ways for, tag management and subsequently key card management. So with that said, I'll bring back over my list of tips and you tell me if I left anything out, any other pro tips that you really have or really like. But one is key cards start with good tag data. So, taking the time, making sure that you've structured your tags. Again, key value pairs, customize your keys, customize your values, make sure that you have the data on there that you want. Folder names or have a tag generator, Tag.io. Limit clicks 2 to 3 layers of key cards, usually tops, seems to be the sweet spot. Again, don't have to. I'm not saying that's a hard rule, but in general, that seems like the sweet spot. Don't just recreate your file system, probably. If it's a very neat, tidy, small file system, it could be okay, but most of the time we're talking layers and layers of folders. That's not what the experience you want with keycards. Grid mode before banner mode. I didn't really highlight that one, but I'll do that real quick. It's a little confusing for your users if you have grid and then banner. So if I switch these up and I made that grid and this banner, most of the time people don't realize that they can double click on the banner mode. You can, so it's good to know that for your all's sake. But like if I come into my channel and I just see this, A, that's small and hard to read, but B, usually people just single click these and filter. They don't realize that they could double click on it and then they would hit a grid and it's just kind of confusing and awkward. So that banner mode is usually best saved for the last layer with your key cards. Always organize your tags and filters panel at the bottom. Again, you can only use tagged keys that are displayed. And again, once they get to the last step there, they're still going to be leveraging that tags and filters panel. So organize that the way that your users will benefit from it. Another thing, yeah, I didn't mention this one, but I typically recommend using a key other than keyword. So keyword is our de facto key when we don't know what that key should be. So keyword right here. So if we don't know what a folder's value should be or something like that, we're just going to give it this key of keyword. So it ends up being a bit of a garbage collector of tags all over the place. And I've seen it too frequently where, that's what people just, just make keyword be my my key card here or something like that. And it's just, it becomes unwieldy to manage. Tags end up showing that they don't expect, but also it becomes very noisy. So you can use keyword if you want to, but usually it's like as the last layer, or I'd say go ahead and break it up. And you can, again, remember, you can always come in here and change keyword, edit that key to be something else that makes more sense and start to structure that data a little better. So visual clues. So, in terms of the way that things look, good, clear titles are very helpful. Color coding, I see that all the time, also really helpful. This disciplines this color, this disciplines that color, like we saw in Seema's example. And at least with channel cards and maybe on key cards sometimes too, having the title on the left tends to be favored. And I'll show you what I mean here. When you perform a search, come out here. Whoop. I'll just do a search for something like a table. Now this is channel cards, but they tend to follow very similar rules as key cards. It can be, if you're relying on the image to help people see what it is, like Revit version, for example, making that bigger and easier to see is actually what I'd recommend. Bigger than what we have here. Kind of one of my, things I want us to change on this is like to make those words bigger so you could see them in the card or in the name, either way. But having that on the left, having that a little bigger and bolder tends to be favorable. Let me see if I've got some other examples here. I think a good example I'll bring this over, of color coding. I really liked Slantis, another one of our customers who submitted their key cards last year. They really used color nicely for distinguishing between, in their case, they use it for a lot more than just Revit content. So they've got like their marketing channels here in yellow. Blue is installers, learning resources, just kind of resource channels. Orange with the Revit. So for their users, it's very quick and easy to say, oh, yep, I'm looking for, Revit content. Immediately, I'm down to at least a few channels that I know I need. It works the same for key cards as well. Varying your images. That's another one that I see a lot. I don't have a good example in there because all of these um, are really good that were submitted. But I have seen it a lot that people use the exact same image on every single key card. And so then you end up kind of defeating the purpose. You kind of lose the benefit of visual like clues because or like the company's logo. They'll just put the company logo on every single thing. You're like, okay, you definitely want the branding there, but maybe not just be the whole image and full color, because then it just makes everything kind of wash out and see the same. I know I was going to bring over, and I see on here too, John, IMEG did a really nice job by getting the branding in there, but making it subtle, making it more of a watermark rather than just be everything. So a nice touch where you get the color, you get the logo, but also you've got the unique ability to see, oh, framing families, detail components, makes it pop, easy to identify. And I already mentioned this one, just being cautious about using images in the banner mode because they get really small. So if they're good, clear ones, totally get away with that. If they're complicated ones, it's just going to make it difficult to see. So all that said, we've got another keycard competition coming up at the beginning of the year. January 1st, I think, is when it goes live. And we loved it last year. We were really happy with what got submitted and getting to see what everyone's doing. And so we've got another one coming up this year, and we'd love to see more submissions. This is the website where you can go find it. As well, when you go to that website, you can get a link to last year's entrants and winners. So it's been really fun and interesting to see, different ways that it's been approached. So these are channel cards, but just vibrant color, or like, I think this is Taylor's, and they did a fantastic job. They really rely on like Revit version being bold. So they made those big numbers so you could really see. Gray's, I loved the descriptions here so people know what they're finding. Yeah, pretty cool. If you haven't checked that out, check those out, and look forward to another round of those this year. But I think that's what I've got. I went over my allotted 30 minutes by quite a bit, but I thank you for sticking on. If there's any questions, please let me know. You can drop them into the chat or Q&A. I'd be happy to run back through how-tos, anything that you're finding, personal experiences. I'd love to hear back on more of that. But hopefully you found some helpful tips as well. And if you need me to share any of those with you after the fact, let me know. But this recording will also be available. So I'll give it a moment. I'll take a sip of water, see if there's questions. Otherwise, we'll wrap up. Great. Haven't seen any questions come through. I really appreciate everybody joining today. If you have any that come to mind later, just reach out to us, support@getavail.com. Either I or my colleague Abram are usually the one that's going to jump in and help you out from there. So don't hesitate to reach out to us. But been a pleasure to have you today, and look forward to talking with everybody soon. Thanks so much.